Yeah, well, I hope you get raped on the way too.
I drive by that deserted country road every day, and the grass is swallowing those 3 broken billboards. But every time I pass by, it's like something is ripped out of my heart. 7 months have passed, and there's been no progress at all in my daughter Angela's case. She was raped and killed, and her body was burned. The police say they have no clues, but I don't believe them. I know they're not paying attention. That day, I slammed on the brakes and stared out at those 3 billboards. Suddenly, I thought, if they won't speak to me, then I'll do it myself. I walked into the ad agency and told the youngster I was going to rent those 3 signs for a month. He looked at the paper and realized who I was. My name is Mildred Hayes, and 7 months ago, I cursed my daughter, and then a prophecy came true. I wrote 3 sentences, 1 for each billboard. The first block was, raped while dying. The second piece was, and still no arrests. In the third block, I put the name, How Gome Chief Willoughby. I know it's going to be a big deal, but I don't care. I just want the whole country to know. I spent the last of my savings, got a reporter, and broadcast it live in front of 3 billboards. People in town may think I'm crazy, but I just want people to remember my daughter hasn't been given justice yet. The ad had just been up for a few days when the sheriff came to my door. He said he did his best to find out, but the clues were never enough. He had cancer and time was running out. I said I knew that I wasn't going after his illness. I was going after what he had done, or rather, what he hadn't done. My son was not happy either and thought I was going too far. But he's not a mother. He doesn't know what it's like to send your daughter out the door and never wait for her to come home. Then that violent cop Dixon came after me too, threatening the ad agency. I'd known they wouldn't sit still, but I wouldn't back down either. I'd waited too long for my silence to be heard, so I had to let these 3 billboards speak for me. Once the ads were up, the town exploded. Some people call me a crazy bitch. Others give me a sneaky thumbs up. But more people just sidestep me as if I'm dirty. Willoughby's deputy, Dixon, the emotionally unstable guy, ran into the ad agency on his first day yelling and trying to punch someone. I went to the police station to argue with him, and he ended up yelling at me, saying I was heartless. But I could see that he was more afraid of the truth than I was. I ignored him. I stared at them, and I knew they were weak-minded. From that day on, life got harder. The priest was instructed to come to my house and order me to take down the billboard saying that I should be considerate and that we all have daughters. I sneer. How many families have daughters? How many families have daughters who have been bullied and lost their lives? And how many families dare to stand up and ask why? I didn't expose the hypocrisy of these guys before because I was in the way, but now I have nothing to worry about. The Godfather got the short end of the stick with me, but I knew they wouldn't quit pressuring me. I went to the dentist the next day, and the dentist was so impatient that he didn't even look at me before he just lifted the drill to remove the diseased tooth. I offered to let him numb it first, and he did so perfunctorily. Looking at the fat old man, I realized that he also wanted to use his job to take it out on the sheriff. But he really underestimated me.
Ah! God damn it! Ah!
The burning smell sobered me up even more, and that dentist cried and sued me into the police station. My son Robbie started complaining too. He was being targeted by his classmates at school, calling his mom a psychopath and saying his sister just deserved it. Even my ex-husband Charlie came running. He started cursing as soon as he walked in the door, saying that I was too strong, too stubborn, and that I had made him the laughingstock of the town too. I'm the one who got Angela killed, and now I'm going to get someone else killed. He even put his hands around my neck and said I ruined the family. I looked at him and didn't say a word back. I'd been numb for a long time, because there was only one question in my mind. Why do they get to go on with their lives while I have to live in hell every day? The townspeople think I'm picking a fight, but they don't know that I don't put up the ads to fight. I put them up to let the man who killed my daughter know that I'm still waiting for him to make a mistake, that I'm still on the case. I'm not looking for empathy, I'm looking for answers. The ad agency couldn't take the pressure and figured out the loophole in the deal, that I hadn't paid the deposit. They ordered me to make up the cost as soon as possible, or they would pull the billboard. I stared at him and said nothing. But to my surprise, someone helped me make up the cost. It was Sheriff Willoughby. The other news that came with it was that he was dead, shot himself with a bag on his head, left a letter. The whole town was shocked, but I wasn't shocked. I'd known he was seriously ill, but I didn't think he passed away so quickly, so suddenly. What I didn't realize was that the rent for those 3 billboards was paid to me before he died. He wrote to me and apologized again. He said he didn't take it personally and that he understood why I did what I did. He even said that he thought the billboards did a pretty good job. He said it was probably the most stirring up our town needed. My hands were shaking as I read the letter. For a moment, I didn't know whether to cry or hate it more, but the town didn't care about that. They only saw the advertisement I had put up before he died. They pointed the finger at me all the time, saying I drove a good cop to his death. Overnight, I went from the mother of the poor victim in my small town to the murderer of the sheriff. I was reviled by the town, had trash thrown at my car, and was bullied for working at the store. I didn't explain. I knew it was useless to explain. Dixon's crazy. He thinks I drove the sheriff to his death. He lost control one after the other, beating up the ad agency boy at the bar, throwing him out the window, and said it was justice in front of the drinkers. They still don't want to leave me alone. 3 billboards were burned. The blackness of the fire almost burned my sanity away. I picked up my heavy fire extinguisher and ran to billboard after billboard, standing in the center of the flames. I couldn't hear my sons begging. I had to put out the fire. The fire ignited my anger, and I completely lost my mind. I went to the police station. It was the middle of the night, and I had a bucket of gasoline in my hand. I poured the gasoline outside the police station, inch by inch, and then lit the fire. The moment the fire started, I didn't step back. I stared at the fire, and in my heart, I wasn't afraid at all. I was only afraid that they would never hurt. What I didn't realize was that Dixon was in there. He wasn't dead. He was badly burned. His face was burned beyond recognition. He changed. The man I recognized as an enemy actually brought out the dossier on my daughter's case, despite the danger in the fire, in a hospital bed, in the same room as the ad agency lad he'd injured. I sat at home and waited for the police to figure out the holes in my words to come and arrest me, but they didn't. The knock on the door was from the advertisers, who told me that billboards usually have a spare copy that we can repost. At a dinner, I ran into my ex-husband and his new girlfriend again. The ex-husband came over and picked on me, saying he burned the billboard and mocking me for never talking to a good man again after I left him. I lifted a bottle of wine and walked over to him, looking at his somewhat timid demeanor and kind of wanting to laugh. There was no big fight. This time, I took the wine as a gift and wished them happiness. After Dixon read the letter that Sheriff left him, he came to my house first thing after he was discharged from the hospital with a new message for me. He told me that someone was bragging in a bar about having done the exact same thing as my daughter's case in another state, and that the details match perfectly. Dixon is not a cop anymore. He was fired for fighting and causing trouble, so he couldn't alarm him. He pretended to talk to the guy and finally enraged the other guy who hit him hard, and this time, Dixon didn't fight back. He sat right where the sheriff used to sit and spoke in a soft voice, losing the hostility he had before, like a child admitting a mistake. I stared at him, his eyes calm, like he was begging me to believe for once. I called out to him as he left and told him thank you. But a few days later, the report came back. The DNA didn't match. It wasn't him. The trail broke again, and that night, I was sitting on the grass under a billboard when Dixon's phone call came in. He said he wasn't going to give up and asked if I wanted to continue. The flaming red billboard rekindled my hope. Before dawn, Dixon and I were on our way. As the car drove out of town, I took one last look back at the 3 billboards. The black letters on a red background still stood out, like 3 question marks I'd shouted out with all my strength. They're still there. Not down like me. I don't know if we're going for revenge or answers.
I guess we can decide along the way.
But this time, I'm not alone anymore.